Hey guys, welcome to my channel Lush Gardener. I hope you guys are fine and are safe. So today we'll be talking about a very common Echeveria called as Echeveria Pvn. Now guys, even though this Echeveria Pvn is a very common succulent, a lot of people tend to have this succulents, but a lot of beginners also happen to kill this succulent. Now guys, it's not your fault. The issue with this succulent is the way that this succulent is built. Now this is a thin-leafed Echeveria. Now it can be little tricky when it comes to watering such succulents, especially the ones that have very thin leaves. Now we will be talking about in detail what are the drawbacks of these succulents. So let's quickly talk about the soil requirements. The soil requirements remains the same. It has to be loose, porous and well draining. Now guys, a very important thing, please do not use a very organic soil for your succulents, especially for PVN, because they do not like too much of nutrients in the soil. Apart from that, you can also notice that there is a difference in color because PVN succulents require a good amount of direct sunlight. If you are going to keep them in indirect sunlight, there is no harm, but you won't be getting that intense color on your PVN. The one in my hand over here was placed in indirect bright light, so you can see it has more of this grayish tone as compared to the other one. The other one was placed in morning direct sunlight, wherein it received direct sunlight for 5 to 6 hours. So there is going to be a major difference depending upon how much of light you provide. So if you want to have that intense color, then you'll have to provide it with morning direct sunlight. You'll also notice if this particular succulent does not receive a good amount of light, you will start noticing that the succulent will start fading off all the colors. It will become even more lighter gray in color, and you will be able to see there's going to be a lot of difference in the leaves as well. Here, as you can see, this was kept indoor in order for it to callus, and then I put it out in indirect bright light. Even the 3 days of the callus period, you can see there is a major difference in the leaf shape. You can see the leaves are much more flat as compared to the one that was receiving direct morning sunlight. You will be able to see how flat it looks like over here, and you can also see the colors are also not very vibrant. It looks very dull because it was kept indoor for 3 days just for it to callus. Even those 3 days did impact the growth of the succulent and the entire look of the succulent. So you can imagine what's going to happen if you're not going to provide it a good amount of light. So ensure either you keep it in indirect bright light or give it direct morning sunlight. So as I said, do not add in too much of fertilizers or nutrients in the soil because Echeveria Pvn does not like too much of nutrients. The roots will get burnt. Now talking about dormancy, because it belongs to the genus of Echeveria, it tends to go dormant during the winters. So you will have to cut down on the watering and do not add any fertilizers during the winter season. Their active growing period is during the summers. So if you want to add any fertilizers, you can either do it once a month or once in 2 months. You can give them some liquid based fertilizer. So now comes the most tricky part, and that is watering. Now guys, if you take a look over here, we have different types of succulents. Now this one is much more plump. You can see the leaves are plump. It's pink rosa, and this is my Echeveria Pvn. Now you can see the difference in the leaves. These leaves are much more plump. Let's not take this example. Let's take Echeveria Hercules. You can see the leaves are very plump, but over here our other Echeveria Pvn is not very plump, which means that the leaves are very thin and it cannot store a lot of water, which means it is going to get dehydrated or it's going to go out of water very soon. So you cannot keep this succulent underwatered for a really long time. And apart from that, you cannot overwater it because the leaves cannot store too much of water, and the water is going to stay in the soil and it will cause rot by overwatering. So you have to be extremely careful. Again, you need to strike a balance between underwatering and overwatering. You need to maintain a proper watering schedule. Whenever you tend to see that the lower leaves are getting wrinkled, it means it's time to water. Or when you tend to feel that your soil is completely bone dry, it's time to water. So it's pretty simple. Please do not keep it underwatered for a really long time. The leaves are very thin. They will run out of water soon. So be very careful about it. Talking about pest issues, I have made a video on how to fix mealy bugs. It was related with a PVN succulent. So I'll put the link in the description below. You can check it out as well. Now talking about propagation and multiplying of PVN, it is pretty simple, just like any other Echeverias. You can either do a leaf propagation, or you can do a stem cutting, or you can even behead a PVN. So it completely depends upon you, whichever option you want to choose. But remember, leaf propagation is going to take a really long time as compared to beheading and stem cutting. I usually prefer to do a stem cutting because that turns out to be much faster, and I'm able to have more succulents by stem cutting or by beheading compared to having a leaf propagation. So guys, I hope that this video on Echeveria Pvn was helpful to you. If it was, please hit the like button. If you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing to it. Until then, take care, stay safe, and keep propagating.